material outer world think that he is a separated unit of consciousness. That's the central illusion about life on earth, that all of us who are not fully spiritually realized people think, and we're wrong in assuming that we are separated individuals apart from the whole of life, and certainly separate from our fellow men. It's an illusion, a profound one.
Right, and when one reaches that point of realizing that there is something more, another stage or another layer, another level that one encounters, then this often brings up a point of tension and conflict within the person, because the decision has to be made whether to adjust to a higher values of the soul, the higher values that one encounters in this expansion, or to stay with an old pattern of thinking that one had in that old life of the past, before this expansion. So, I mean, there is a real conflict that crops up in people, I think.
The dialogue that you and Dale are having reminds me of John Donne, the famous romantic poet who wrote a poem entitled "Manacles of the Mind." How most of our experience, most of our thought is limited by our self-imposed limited consciousness, and I couldn't help but think of his poem as you explored consciousness. What are the barriers to expanding the consciousness?
Well, the sense that we, by residing in a form, a body, are separate from other people, that's one major barrier. Why the world is made so that we have individual personalities and individual bodies, I don't know. It must fulfill some part in the plan, because this is where the varied and diverse contribution of human beings can be offered to the plan through the experience and the equipment that each of us has in a particular lifetime. But on the level of consciousness, we don't have those barriers, and yet we assume they are there. And that's what, to me, is so interesting about consciousness, that it really is a reflection of what we assume about life. We tend to think that what we experience, what we think, what we are aware of is reality, but more and more I'm beginning to realize it isn't necessarily reality at all. It's just what we think. It's a construct that we have created for ourselves, probably over many, many incarnations, and we bring it back with us every time we are reborn. As a friend of mine said the other day, we all have these tapes playing in our heads. Well, each of us has a tape that we run constantly, and that is our consciousness, and that we mistake for reality. And the central problem is to figure out how to get beyond that tape, to make that breakthrough to a level of reality that is as God experiences the world.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier about the illusions that we create as being barriers, and I was just thinking a good example of that was recently happened to like the illusions created by the faulty accounting practices at Enron and WorldCom and Arthur Andersen and those other companies. They've created the illusion of a growing and expanding and profitable companies, but actually, when you look past that illusion, there was nothing but falseness there, and such illusions have become they've preyed on investors' desires for profits, and they've created this illusion that there was this profitable company, and then we find out that it is all based on falseness.
Yeah, it's a good example, because there's another scandal that recently came to light. I can't think of who to attribute it to, but an accountant said that the minute he looked at their books, he realized what they had done. It was a totally fabricated picture that they were trying to present, and that anybody with any knowledge of accounting could see through immediately. And it's again an indication of the fabulousness, I guess to use the real meaning of the word, the fabulousness of their creation that really has no foundation to it. So our point is,
well, I
reality is not what we necessarily present it to be.
Right. I mean, everybody, all the investors, and assumed that what they were reading and what they were hearing was real, was reality, was the truth.
And they wanted it to be, and they probably didn't look too hard.
That's where we all buy into the illusion part of it by investing, because we're also want these same profits. We want to be part of this growth and to see it grow, and so we're willing to go along with what appears to be reality.
And also look at how the behavior of mankind was affected by that illusion of Enron too. And I think another point of this whole discussion is that our consciousness, whether it be illusion or real, determines our behavior. So that's why consciousness is so important. If you've just tuned in, you're listening to Inner Sight, and today we're talking about consciousness. We're doing Consciousness Part 2. And by the way, I guess you're interested in that gift that we're sending out to you. We have a gift. It's a pamphlet. And the title of the pamphlet is The Energy of Light. And I think you'll find it very interesting. It's more or less in alignment with what we're speaking about today. So once again, it's called The Energy of Light. It's a pamphlet. We'll send it out to you free of charge. Simply give us a call at the toll-free number 1-866-695-8247. Once again, that's 1-866-695-8247. And all the work, by the way, of the Lucis Trust, including this program, is funded by the voluntary donations of people like yourselves who support the goals of the Lucis Trust. We are not endowed, nor do we have a wealthy benefactor who helps to pay for this program. We depend on the donations, large and small, of individuals. So please give if you want these programs to continue on the air. Donations can be sent to Lucis Trust, 120 Wall Street, New York, New York, 10005. Once again, Lucis Trust, 120 Wall Street, New York, New York, 10005. And once again, if you want us to send out that gift to you, the pamphlet entitled The Energy of Life, The Energy of Light, give us a call on our toll-free number. The easy way to remember it is 1-866-NY-LUCIS. Think of 1-866 New York Lucis. I can't help but always be reminded of that nice quotation by Victor Hugo that once the mind expands to a new dimension, it can never return to its original form, and I think that's so true, and it's very similar to what you were saying earlier. What are some of the subtle ways that affect the change in human consciousness?
Well, if possible, before we respond to that, I'd like to come back to the issue of what are the barriers to the expanding of consciousness. I think enough hasn't been said about this sense of being a separated unit, an individual, because I from my understanding, the whole issue of consciousness and the expansion of consciousness centers on this realization in the human being that he is a self. We talked in the previous program about consciousness being, actually it permeates all levels of life, from the mineral kingdom, the vegetable kingdom, the animal kingdom, as well as human. And I think you can watch an ant colony or a bee hive and know that consciousness does organize life on that level in a way that is quite extraordinary. But the unique thing about the human being is that he realizes he is an individual, a unit, an entity, I guess you could say. He's aware. He's self-aware. And that is such a significant and essential recognition. But the problem is that we stay stuck in it. We like being separate, apparently, with all its sorrow and loneliness from time to time. We like thinking that we are self-ruling and self-maintaining. when in fact we're not. We live within a much greater life. We live